Moody's has predicted that India's GDP, in fact, in 2022 said that it crossed 3.5 trillion US dollars and will continue to be fastest growing G20 economy in the years to come. Now, infrastructure, manufacturing sector will push India's growth story, will make it the fastest growing economy over the next few years. Also raising red flags over the pace of reforms and policy barriers that could hamper development and investment opportunities in years to come. In its research report, the US-based rating agency said that bureaucracy could slow the approval process in obtaining license and setting up of businesses, prolonging the gestation period. And it also said, and I'm quoting at this point in time, that India's higher bureaucracy in decision making will reduce its attractiveness as a destination for foreign direct investment. Very interesting points coming in there from Moody's at this point in time. Joining me is Yuvika Singhal from Quantico. Also with us is Subhomoy Bhattacharjee, who's a senior journalist. I want to come to you first, Yuvika. What do you make of these interesting takeaways from the report by Moody's?
Hi, Shweta. Thank you for having me. I think Moody somewhere is putting out a very balanced, or if I could say, a mixed kind of a takeaway for us. So on one hand, they do sound more positive about India and India's growth story. On the other hand, they also talk about some of the factors that could play or as laggards on India's growth story. And these are some of the factors from a policy perspective that we are aware of. But having said so, I think we need to also be mindful of the fact that over the last few years, a lot has been done on the policy front. And India, for the matter, has emerged as one of the most stable economic policy offering one of the most stable economic policies globally. And this has come about with a host of reforms, not just from the government, but also from the RBI. To jog your memory, we have seen in the last few years, RBI emerged as an inflation targeting bank, establishing its credibility to control inflation. On the government side, also, we have seen a lot of predictability, new policies such as PLI, measures to ease businesses and the way of doing business in India. There has been a lot of push towards rule-based policy and rule-based institutions vis-a-vis ad hocness that was somewhat expected of India almost a decade ago. And I think even in times of adversities, when we have seen last 2 years being, taken away by the pandemic and the uncertainty it caused, I think India worked relentlessly to push through some of its policy reforms, and we did not fall flat on those, despite a lot of uncertainty, both in the domestic and the global economy. So while I think we need to take it with some bit of a pinch of salt, that yes, there are bigger and greater milestones that India is yet to achieve, but not also negate or downplay what we have already achieved. And there's a lot of ground that as Indian economy we have achieved in the last few years. We are one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We offer a very stable macroeconomic environment, a young population, a huge domestic consumption market. So these are all structural strengths that remain in India's favor as a key destination as far as attracting investments is concerned. So I think we need to draw a more balanced view.
Right. And I think that's what Moody's has done, drawn a very balanced view. Let me get in Subhomoy at this point in time. Subhomoy, interesting updates coming in there. As we read more into Moody's report, as Yuvika pointed out, it appears that there is a balancing act here. On one hand, betting big on India's infrastructure manufacturing sector, Moody's says that this will in fact push India's growth story. But at the same time, red tapeism, bureaucracy could hold us back.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's nothing particularly new there. The reason I say so is because let's look at what as Yuvika pointed out, the growth momentum is that's continuing. So I'll just come to that in a minute, but let's look at the more interesting thing, which is the bureaucracy issue. I think Moody's is getting it wrong in looking at higher bureaucracy. I'm one of those guys who strongly believes that bureaucracy is a problem. But the problem is not at the central government level. The problem is at the state level. Now, why does that happen? The reason is most FDI, when it gets cleared, when it comes to India, it has to find a place in a state. where it will be set up. Now let's take the example of the Ratnagiri refinery complex. The central government's in principle approval is there, so that's not a problem. The problem is that there is a land dispute going along there. And this is something that the state government officials will have to sort it out. If you look at any FDI, especially Moody is referring to manufacturing sector. In the manufacturing sector, any FDI that's coming, the operational role is that of the state government. And in the state government, it's a mix. I mean, it's difficult to say that it's higher bureaucracy or lower bureaucracy. Essentially, what happens is at the state government, there is a complex interplay of the local level officials, the local level politicians, working sometimes along with, sometimes against the state government's initial plans. And that is where the biggest challenges of FDI lie. For instance, states like Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, which managed to get a lot of investments, foreign investments into place, have been able to resolve this challenge by aligning their bureaucracy. So therefore, investors find no surprises on the way, even if a political party changes. Whereas there are states where we obviously know that the investments don't go. And the reasons precisely is because there the state is not aligned, or rather all elements of the state are not aligned to what is the investment requirement. This is the biggest challenge of bureaucracy. Now, so say that the bureaucracy is a problem is, yes, I agree. The bureaucracy at the center, for instance, if today, based on this, the central government or any other element of it tries to be further proactive, my sense is that that will not yield to a substantial change on the ground. The substantial change in the ground comes from state level. Look at other example. In Andhra Pradesh, for instance, there was a huge investment plan that was created by Singapore to develop Amaravati. Now, did the center oppose it? No. It was the complex interplay of political risks and rewards in the state, along with their respective bureaucracies, which created the problem. And we have, therefore, a huge investment which never came to light. In Uttar Pradesh, for instance, the changes that we are seeing, positive changes that's happening, is because of the fact that the state level bureaucracy is for the first time aligning itself with what the state political structure wants, the power reforms. So all of these happen at the state level. At the central level, there is frankly very little, and I will again say, that can be done because all of the processes that's necessary to bring foreign investment into the country at the central level, which needs central approval, where the central government can be a catalyst, are all very much in place and compare with the best of the rest of the world in terms of best practices. However, still, while there are objections to FDI coming in, that happens, as I said, at the operational, and that is where the big challenge lies.